One of the most thrilling moments of Fight Week is undoubtedly the stare down. Whether it's at a press conference or during weigh-ins, these face-offs are essential viewing. They add an extra layer of drama and anticipation as fighters lock eyes before heading into the cage. But not every stare down is about intimidating glares and intense rivalry. Sometimes they turn out to be downright hilarious, bizarre, or just plain goofy. Today, we're diving into some of the most unforgettable and amusing stare downs that have taken place outside the cage. No in-fight face-offs here, just the pre-fight moments that had us laughing and scratching our heads. I'm Jin from Beyond the Octagon, and this is our countdown of the top 10 funniest stare downs in MMA history. Starting off at number 10, we have the epic Jones-Cormier stare down chaos. Let's talk about one of the most memorable stare downs that wasn't exactly funny in the conventional sense, but still delivered some unforgettable moments. When Jon Jones and DC faced off at the UFC 178 press conference, the tension was palpable, and things quickly spiraled into a full-blown brawl. Sure, the initial face-off was all about intense rivalry and heated emotions, but what makes this moment stand out in the comedy department is what happened next. UFC PR executive Dave Schaller, not exactly known for his imposing presence, was caught in the middle of the chaos. Watching him try to manage the situation as the fighters went at it is nothing short of hilarious. His attempts to intervene and subsequent flight off the stage into the backdrop is a scene straight out of a slapstick comedy. The backdrop falling apart only adds to the absurdity, with the crowd reacting as if an epic disaster movie is unfolding. And then there's DC, frustrated and out of reach, who decides to throw his shoe at Jones. Yes, you heard that right, his shoe. The shoe lands on Heidi Fang, a dedicated videographer from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, who handles the situation with remarkable composure. Number 9. Wagner Prado and the Three Stooges stare down. In the words of Brock Lesnar, sometimes you have to turn chicken shit into chicken salad, and that's precisely what Prado did during the weigh-ins for his rematch with Phil Davis. Prado's UFC debut a few months prior was a bit of a letdown when an accidental eye poke by Davis halted the fight early, leaving Prado less than thrilled about his first UFC experience ending in such a way. Fast forward to October of the same year, and Prado gets a shot at redemption at UFC 153. But rather than coming into the stare down with bitterness, Prado decided to inject a little humor into the proceedings. He playfully signaled to Davis to join him in a light-hearted reenactment of the classic Three Stooges routine, the legendary eye poke defense. Watching them mimic the slapstick antics of Mo, Larry, and Curly during the stare down was both hilarious and endearing. Dana White was visibly amused by this entertaining detour from the usual intense face-offs, proving that even in a sport often defined by serious rivalries, there's always room for a bit of humor. Although Prado lost the fight by anaconda choke in the second round, he certainly won over the crowd at the weigh-ins. And while it might not have changed the outcome of the fight, it definitely brightened our day. Number 8. The Silva Weidman face-off face plant. Sometimes, the most memorable moments aren't the ones that are meticulously planned. They're the ones where intensity takes a wild turn and lands right on the funny side of the spectrum. Case in point, the UFC 162 weigh-ins. Anderson Silva, known for his intimidating presence, was set to defend his middleweight title against the up-and-comer Chris Weidman. Despite no personal animosity, the stare down was charged with a palpable tension. Silva, ever the cool customer, approached with his hands behind his back, projecting a relaxed demeanor. Weidman, however, wasn't about to be outdone. He leaned in with equal fervor, leading to an absurdly close face-to-face moment where their noses were practically touching. It was a fleeting, yet hilariously absurd instance of stare down, quickly broken up by Dana White. Chris Weidman's determination to stand toe-to-toe, literally, despite the awkward closeness made for a comically memorable scene. The photographers captured every second, and immediately afterward, Joe Rogan playfully asked Weidman what it was like to kiss Anderson Silva. Weidman's response was equally entertaining, showing he could handle the humor as well as the heat.
It has nice lips. My wife, don't get jealous.
Number 7. The Van Zandt-Waterson Dance-Off. John McCain might have called MMA human cockfighting, but if he had witnessed the weigh-in stare-down between Paige Van Zandt and Michelle Waterson before their bout at UFC on Fox 22, he might have had a change of heart. This wasn't about hostility, it was pure, unfiltered fun. As the stare-down commenced, Paige Van Zandt kicked things off with a spontaneous running man dance move. Not to be outdone, sprinkler move, all while Daniel Cormier, on commentary, quipped about how he'd rather not dance with his opponents given his own stare-down history. What's especially delightful about this moment isn't just the playful display of choreography between two elite fighters, but how Waterson seamlessly flipped back into serious mode after their playful exchange. And let's not overlook Sean Shelby, the matchmaker, who remained utterly unfazed throughout. He stood there with a stone-faced patience, waiting for the dance-off to end so they could finally get into the stare-down pose. Number 6. The Barry Struve Scale Stare-Down Showdown. In the world of MMA, size does matter, but it also makes for some truly memorable moments. Case in point, the weigh-in for UFC on Versus 6, featuring Pat Barry and Stefan Struve. Barry, at 5 feet 11 inches, is on the shorter side for a heavyweight, while Struve stands a towering 7 feet, making him the tallest fighter in UFC history. It's no surprise that matchmaker Joe Silva thought it'd be fun to pit these two against each other in 2011. And boy, was it a sight to see? The weigh-in stare-down was anything but ordinary. Instead of stepping off the scale for their face-off, Barry decided to stay put, aiming to gain a little extra height for the occasion. Struve, ever the good sport, joined Barry on the scale, creating a visual contrast that was both hilarious and awe-inspiring. When Barry finally stepped down, it was clear just how much shorter he was compared to the towering Struve, leaving Ariane Celeste and everyone else in attendance thoroughly amused. The moment was a fun, silly throwback to the kind of quirky spectacle you might have seen in Pride FC. Number 5. The Jones-Johnson Stare-Down Prank. Dana White has seen it all during stare-downs, everything from actual fights to flying chairs. Given his extensive experience, you'd think he'd be pretty used to the chaos, especially with high-profile fighters like John Jones involved. And yet, Jones and Anthony Rumble Johnson decided to test the limits of White's composure during their stare-down at a major UFC press event for UFC 187, a fight that ultimately didn't happen due to John Jones' infamous off-cage issues. At the press event, Jones and Rumble decided to pull a fast one on the UFC president. They staged a mock scuffle that mirrored the intense stare-down and scuffle from Jones' earlier encounter with Daniel Cormier. Watching Dana White's reaction as he prepared for what he thought might escalate into something serious was priceless. His concern was palpable as he scrambled to manage the situation, only for Jones and Johnson to reveal that it was all a prank. The relief and surprise on Dana White's face were evident as he realized he'd been had. Jones and Rumble had managed to inject some humor into the intense pre-fight build-up, and White, once the prank was revealed, likely went off to enjoy a well-deserved drink. It was a classic moment of MMA mischief, showing that even in a sport filled with high stakes and drama, there's always room for a little playful deception. Number 4. Tony Ferguson's double scare for Dana White. Dana White is no stranger to the unpredictability of stare-downs. Loud noises, sudden movements, and general chaos are all part of the job. However, Tony Ferguson took the art of startling the UFC president to a new level, much like John Jones and Anthony Johnson did. Ferguson, clearly enjoying playing mind games with Dana White, pulled off not one, but two memorable scares. The first happened at Media Day for their ill-fated UFC 209 fight against Khabib. After an intense stare-down, Ferguson let out a thunderous "woo" that would make Ric Flair proud. The sudden loud outburst sent Dana into a brief panic and even startled Ariel Helwani, who was trying to maintain his calm, documentary-style commentary. The fun didn't stop there. Fast forward to Media Day for UFC 216, where Ferguson was set to face Kevin Lee. Dana, perhaps having forgotten the first woo, was once again caught off guard when Ferguson repeated his scare tactic. The look on Dana's face was priceless, proving that even experienced veterans can be caught off guard. While Ferguson opted for a quieter approach in his stare down with Anthony Pettis, we can only hope he brings back the woo for his next bout. After all, scaring the boss is just part of the fun in MMA.
Fight now, you're just hours away. Whoa, and 20% legitimately scared me right there with that one. That was intense.
Number 3. Nick Diaz and the legendary Stockton salute. Before press conferences became the must-watch spectacles they are today, they were often respectful affairs aimed at promoting the sport. Think suits, scripted speeches, and a whole lot of formality. Enter Nick Diaz and you get comedy gold. At the Strikeforce Shamrock vs. Diaz press event, where Diaz was set to fight Frank Shamrock, the stage was set for a typical stare down. However, Nick Diaz had other ideas. After being introduced, and with the traditional pre-fight music blasting, Diaz approached Shamrock for a handshake. But instead of the expected cordial gesture, Nick pulled his hand back and delivered a classic Stockton salute. Diaz's exaggerated flip-off was a moment of pure Diaz brilliance, his hand thrusting forward to make sure the message was clear. Shamrock, perhaps taken aback, responded with a bizarre gesture of his own before the stare down proceeded in the traditional manner. As Shamrock turned to face the crowd, Diaz kept his body facing his opponent but turned his head away, a subtle defiance in his posture. The whole exchange ended with Diaz throwing his hands up as if to say, "This is ridiculous." It was a perfect example of why the Diaz brothers are some of the most compelling and entertaining figures in MMA. Their ability to break the mold and inject authenticity into every moment is what makes them so unforgettable. Number 2. Sean O'Connell's Rock Paper Scissors Showdown. Sean O'Connell has become renowned for his quirky antics during weigh-ins, earning him a reputation akin to Genki Sudo, but in the best way possible. His antics, whether it's popping bubbles, doing a nose boop, or staging a protein shaker drink-off, always manage to bring a smile and break the tension. But one of his most memorable moments came at Fight Night 65 against Anthony Perosh. During their stare down, O'Connell took a refreshingly simple yet hilarious approach. Instead of the usual fists up pose, he challenged Perosh to a game of rock, paper, scissors. Of course, in a stare down where fighters are already in fighting stances, the game is hilariously skewed. O'Connell went with paper, easily winning against Perosh's pre-chosen rock. O'Connell's hands went up in victory, adding a delightful touch of humor to the proceedings. While he's pulled off much more elaborate pranks in the past, this straightforward bit always gets a good laugh. And guys, at number 1, we have Mike Perry's legendary scream. First impressions can be everything, and UFC 202 gave us a memorable one thanks to Mike Perry's debut. Before that weigh-in, Perry was just another fighter on the roster. But his introduction to the MMA world during his stare down with Hyun-Gyu Lim was anything but forgettable. As Lim approached Perry with an outstretched hand for a handshake, Perry pulled a classic move. He screamed at Lim in a way that perfectly encapsulates his larger-than-life personality. What makes this moment even funnier is the context. Perry, who had just rejected the handshake, shouted, "Thought you had a friend, boy?" This line, delivered with an exaggerated intensity, is one of the most memorable things ever said at a stare down. It's as if Perry was implying that a handshake equates to a deep friendship, only to slam the notion with his unexpected scream. The sheer randomness and situationally inappropriate nature of the scream had everyone in stitches. Lim's stoic reaction only added to the absurdity, and Joe Rogan could barely contain his laughter as he announced the fight. Mike Perry's scream is the pinnacle of stare-down silliness, offering a perfect blend of shock and humor. It's an introduction that stands out in MMA history, and it's the reason this moment tops our list. And with that, we conclude our rundown of the top 10 hilariously epic pre-fight stare-downs. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.